Alright, welcome back to another devlog. This is number 12. So this week I got a lot done. Um, Trying a new discipline of waking up in the morning and trying to get it started as early as possible. And instead of, kind of half working while listening to a podcast, but really kind of focus, and I really need that focus this week because the first part of the week was one of the more challenging things I've had to do. So on Monday, I decided to go back and the um, tackle the refactoring of the head tracking logic cases. So So this is, I pretty much scrapped the old class and I pretty much worked at it as use it as a model to build this new class from scratch. And what I did is I cleaned out everything that was not being used. Well, because the old class was just, the problem was it was becoming a very spaghetti mess, and it wasn't able to go the distance all the way to stability. It was just getting too many edge cases. It was just getting too complicated. It was becoming a big headache. So I needed to start over again and implement a more robust framework in order to handle certain situations. Because in the code, you'd have all these public methods getting called, and at any time, a current a I wanted to have this coroutine, this asynchronous coroutine, execute um, uh, be only like executing once or one at a time, pretty much. So how do you do that? So good thing I'm knowledgeable in system programming. So I implemented a state machine, pretty much, so only one state can be running at a time. And in order to track the cases from transitioning from one state to the other, I implemented this big old function. Like it's called like it's pretty much like a switch case matrix. So uh, every case where each state can move to another state, like certain things have to happen. Whether you have to reset the rotation degree, or you have to stop the actual coroutine that's in progress. And not each case in the matrix is filled out, but only the cases that are valid, that are tested. And it has debug tracking to kind of track down, okay, why isn't this working? Okay, I went to this case, why isn't this happening? So I can really, if I added another state, that would just then I'd have more paths to define. So you can imagine 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A 6 by 6 matrix grid of all possible cases. That a simple if-else structure with Boolean flags is not going to handle it. Like it needs something like this, where any potential case where one state's moving to another, it needs to be able to handle that properly. So a lot of logic. So a lot of logic and a lot of testing. Monday and Tuesday, I really sat down and completely tore the thing apart and rebuilt it from the ground up. That means like retesting all the functionality of the head tracking to make sure it's working proper. Basically starting over again, because my initial implementation, while it started off simple, like I identified it as it's a ripe for refactor. I also added some gizmos for better in editor debug. Um, So this took a lot of time to really some debug state. This took a lot of time to really uh, get it working properly. A ton of testing, And during this process, it was probably one of the more difficult things where I would take two steps forward and then one step backwards. I'd fix something and then other issues were happening, and I just have to keep grinding through it. Where it's like, okay, is this happening because I changed something, or is this something new? Kind of like tracking, writing down issues as I spot them, and just the process of just ironing it out, and endless testing. And so that went all the way till about Wednesday. In the middle of the Wednesday, it was starting to look pretty darn good. I was getting happy because I was finally reaching the end of um, the full finite state machine cycle. If I can open this up here, behavior. I was actually reaching the end of it all, and it was looking pretty good overall. So, um, soon, I was beginning to test it, and only these very rare edge cases were coming up, which were not reproducible, which is fine because if a software is never totally bug free, but like, is a bug happening? Is it reproducible? Is it consistent where the player is going to run into it? Most likely they're going to run into it. That's the kind of, if you see something and you can consistently reproduce it, you want to address it and fix it. But if something that's like, okay, I saw it once, but I can't see it again, or you fix something else and then that problem went away, you can probably call it good. So by the middle of Wednesday, I was, you know, less and less issues where it's just like every case I throw at it, it just, um, it continues to perform as expected. When I interrupt, I'm spotted, unspotted, anything I try, it just works. Um, so I was happy, and um, I finally felt comfortable to move on to another issue. Now, in production, if I get a team of testers testing it, they might find something, but I tried everything to make it misbehave that I could think of, and that's good enough for me. If I see something going forward, that's another story, but as of now, I'm moving on to other things. Um, Wednesday, I fixed the AI walking off the edge of the mesh. Sometimes it would, after doing this initial search, it would find the target and it would walk off the edge. Um, One of those bugs. And I spent the rest of the day working on logic, a final new state to actually detect if the player, whatever states it in, detect if it's shot. So if it's shot, it'll actually, for a time, it'll actually turn towards the target, even though it doesn't see it. It'll go towards the target and track it for a while, and then it'll stop and continue its pattern in the full cycle. That was surprisingly, see, it didn't walk off the edge there. It knows better. Anyways, yeah, it's just looking good. So now he goes back to patrol, and it just behaves. There's no glitchy head tracking behavior where it's fighting against each other, or it doesn't rotate smoothly. It snaps sometimes. Given some odd condition, I just can't spot anything anymore, which makes me happy because it was a real bit of work getting everything ironed out. But that's, you just keep pushing, keep grinding forward, and keep polishing it like forging steel, and the software eventually becomes very robust. So that was a big day. Spent 10 and a half hours that day, and then Thursday, I finished up working on the attacked state. Got that all solid, and finally merged all the feature set of that I started 3 weeks ago, implementing a bunch of new features for the AI the AI robot. So all that went back into the main branch, and that epic leg is closed. And now I drew up another leg of features. Now specifically switching back to the player, more features for the player, and branched off the main branch for that. Um, so then I did something where I implemented a feature where you go to stealth and it'll actually have a timer, recharge. So if you're in stealth, like the energy goes down, and then at some point it turns itself back on. There it is, and then you have to wait until so the recharge rate goes to a certain point before you can go back again. Eventually, there'll be some UI or something to give the player feedback that um, what their current energy status is. Um, I spent some time looking at the profiler again because my game was really grinding to a halt, like being a slug, like 15 frames per second. It's like, what's going on here? So I learned to understand the profiler and what it was telling me in the if you go to general analysis profiler. So I learned what these bars mean, and you can actually filter out and like, okay, what's taking up the most CPU time? Why is it framing out? Well, the good news is that it's not my scripts. My scripts aren't very heavy and they're not causing everything to slow down. What's happening is I was having a lot of most of the slowdown is coming from the editor because I have a lot of windows open and a lot of things running. If I have the scene in the game running at the same time, it really slows things down. Or I have a lot of different windows like the Odin Inspector and such. Now, if I switch to the default layout, it really improves performance. Also, if I do a restart of the IDE Unity, it fixes the problem. So I actually got a grasp on what's going on, so I'm not as worried. And if I do a build, all the overhead of the editor goes away. So that's kind of a weight off my shoulders. I thought my game, already without anything, my game was really bad performance, but that's not the case. So it's just an editor issue. I have to kind of be aware of that. So on Friday, I turned back to working on a new epic leg of implementing more features for the player. So what I did was I implemented. So I had this basic cover controller, but I wanted to modify it to, change the shape, maybe a taller one. But it's kind of involved. So I kind of went back and I sorted out and gave myself some notes about, if you look at this one, I implemented this. I'm making more and more use of this Odin Inspector, but I implemented some notes to say, okay, how to adapt a cover and then different steps, right in the inspector, not in my notes where I'll have to dig through it, but right here on the component and say, okay, follow these steps in order to, duplicate this and then change the dimensions and then update the actual nav mesh bounds and stuff and the cover points, right? Just so I have this for reference for later. So after that was done, looking good, now I can make new cover prefabs easily. I went back into the Invector system because I was trying to figure out, I was testing the get cover behavior, and it wasn't quite working right, but kind of looking at the I wasn't really understanding how the Invector cover system works, so I had to dive back into Invector. But the only problem was now my Invector demo is broken in this project, so I had to create a clean project um, with the Invector system in order to test the demo out and then compare it to my project, see what's going on because it wasn't behaving like the demo was. So I kind of went down a rabbit hole and ended up actually upgrading the Unity editor to the latest version of Unity 6. Um, and in the process, took a lot of time to update packages. I ended up breaking a couple things, like the VFX. I had to work through a couple issues, restoring the VFX for shooting. It was just something, it messed up the render pipeline a bit. And then I had to work through a few other issues until I got it pretty much back to normal, working in its working state. Now with the latest and greatest editor, which is great. Um, so I ended the day kind of getting further on the cover system issues, kind of diving in. It's like, okay, this variable controls that, but I still have more work to do to sort out, why exactly it's not behaving correctly. Some of the issues, it's not really moving around corners when you're reliably. It's not, for some reason, it has something to do with the camera angle. It won't move around corners in certain directions. Only like, yeah, if the camera's facing or something. It's something weird. I'm not sure how that works. Also, it's not really standing you up for some reason reliably. I got it sort of working, but it kind of bumps into the wall unnaturally. There's something wrong with the collider spacing or something. Um, yeah, so it's not standing up properly. Things like that. But in the process, I'm actually getting together more of an epic list of features that have to do with cover, right? Not just aiming, not just aiming, not just aiming around cover, but also aiming above cover, over cover, jumping over cover, um, and also transitioning from one cover, like jumping from one cover to another. Um, and then if it's close enough, and then also maybe sliding into cover, and also kind of an X-ray thing. If you're behind cover and the camera can't see, you want to do like an X-ray so you can still see where the character is doing. Um, so a bunch of features, more of an epic that have to do with cover. Besides more of the stuff that I want to do with um, the character features, like implementing stealth on the guns, the weapons, player aim assist. So when you're aiming at the enemy, he will kind of sticky target and on the enemy, so it's more easy to aim at the enemy. Giving him maybe an assault rifle, dual wield pistol, and then also I bought the Odin validator, so I want to add these prefabs to a new scene. And of course, everything's going to break because there's a lot of dependencies that I need to work. But I want to add validation that kind of says, go back and add validation. So when things break, I don't have to track it down in the error messages. I'll know exactly where it is, where and what it is with the Odin validator. So it's a good tool. And I can really like spell out my dependencies, and save a step, so I don't have to dig through code and be like, what's going on here, and figure it out. It just tell me, oh, you're missing this, you need to add this reference or whatever. So that's gonna be a good tool. So I have all the Odin tools now, and it just makes my workflow less painful and more effective, less tedious. I think that's about it. Yeah, it was a big week. Got a lot done. It doesn't look like I've added a lot of stuff, but I've added a lot of polish and finish to the existing. Yeah, you don't see a lot of new features, but the features that are already were around from last week are a lot more solid and quality for sure. They just behave way better. They're not hacky. They're not spaghetti, and it's it's really I'm really liking it. So we'll move forward with more player features next week. Stay tuned, and I'll see what I can do. All right, thanks. Bye.